Hello, I'm Jashikins, and welcome to another episode of Jash Reads. Tonight, I'm going to start reading my original web series, Chronicles of Gaia. Chapter 1, Daily Routine. The humid morning air touched my nostrils, and my eyes opened slowly. Maybe it was tiredness, or maybe it was the humidity, but I didn't want to get up. Or maybe, just maybe, I didn't want to move from my husband's side. I turned over to see Frank Halia sleeping and snoring up a storm. I smiled and got out of bed, availing slightly so that wings sprouted out of my back. I looked in the mirror to see wings that were mostly like a northern harrier's with a tint of likeness to a red-tailed hawk. Buteo, you're up early, Frank said, and I made my wings disappear. I'm going scouting today, I replied, starting to get dressed. Plus, I'm taking a class with me. Nervous? He asked, getting out of bed so that he could wrap his arms around my neck. You've been teaching for years. You're not going to fail with one class. You can teach them about the horrors of the Rethai and the wonders of Fang. I slapped him playfully away. Many thousands of years ago, when Gaia was called Earth, these meanies called Rethai inhabited the planet, though they called themselves the dreaded H-word, Frank said in a playful tone. But then they left the planet, which soon encountered a plague. Only through the perseverance of Fang and his dealings with the demon from the sky did we get the process to reveal. This made the survivors able to get through the plague and change into animals. They renamed themselves Drethivil. I shook my head. Availing nowadays was much harder than before. Back in the time of Fang, Dreth were able to change into 3 different animals. Now the ability to change into more than one animal was considered a miracle, and to transform fully into any animal was considered near impossible. Except for the snow leopards, the right-hand Dreth of the Council of Ant. Maybe you should consider teaching, I said. You seem to be a pretty... God damn it. You seem to do a pretty good job at it. I want kids, but to actually teach them? No. Don't think I could, Frank replied. At least you'll be able to tell them good stories. But you'll always be the father that will tell the best ones. Any word on the adoption process going forward? I paused before continuing. I wasted time by walking over to the window, looking outward from the second floor. There was a small pond, and across that you could see some of a training course. During the time of the Rethai, the training course had been a golf course. Now there were different structures, Drethiville made and natural plant formations, that Dreth would have to run over and around, sometimes even doing mock battles. Gaia was a harsh mistress, and you had to be prepared for whatever it threw at you. Some, like a former student of mine, were afraid of the Rethai returning and so went to special school to learn how to fight against them. It's not going well? Frank asked. You know how it is, I told him. All children are to be with their birth parents unless the parents have too many children already or the parents have died. With me being a teacher, it's easier, but still doesn't seem like anything will work out. And with you being asked by the Council of Ant to be a warrior, they're probably delaying the process because of that. I'm not going to leave you. don't want to always be on the move. When we adopt a child, I don't want him to have no sense of home. What do you think he'll veer into? Frank asked, putting a hand on my shoulder. Well, I veer into a mixture of a northern harrier and a red-tailed hawk. You veer into a bald eagle, I replied. Hopefully we'll get another bird to the family. Except if he or she is a seagull. With that, both of us laughed. Yes, seagulls seem to be feathery demons. When I was a child, I had stupidly thought to feed one and found myself chased by a whole flock of them. All those who grew up in Flowerland had a similar story. Come back here! Our downstairs neighbor yelled. Sounds of little feet coming up the wooden ladder soon reached my ears. When the child came into view, I didn't know how to react. I wanted to reprimand and hug him all at the same time. But that was the duty of a parent, not me. The mother came soon after, her hair now veiled into sheep's fur, with an angry expression on her face. An angry expression that turned respectful when she saw me. I'm sorry, Buteo Ralph, she said, taking the hand of her son. This shouldn't have happened. It's fine, Frank replied, smiling at the kid. Yeah, I seconded. Young ones can be little nightmares. Plan to have one of my own someday. She nodded, and the little one ran back towards her. Her name was Deborah, and she was infamous for having her hair constantly veiled as sheep's fur. It took great practice for her to do that, and some dreth, including myself, thought she should try to fully veil. It was a sort of yearly thing that never ended up going anywhere. Soon, both mother and toddler were back on the first floor. Well, you should go now, Frank said, kissing my cheek. There are young minds that need to learn the knowledge only you can provide. Oh, shut up, I said, playfully slapping him. I kissed him on the lips and then exited the house. The house I lived in was at the end of a cul-de-sac. The wreath I wore that we hadn't bothered changing, at least for the most part. There were some that had created their own terms for it. Walking down the large path down from the house, I spared a glance at it. It, like the rest in Native Lakes, was wooden and was 2 stories. It wasn't very big as the majority of the day was spent outside. Around some houses, the little ones were playing around while the parents cooked up a small breakfast. I smelled some bacon, a rarity that was brought in by a snow leopard, and waved to the family that was cooking it. As one of my feet stepped onto the black grass that had once been wreath I rode, as most Reth didn't use mechanical vehicles and horses were a rarity, most roads were gone, and heard someone shout, "Hey, Redbutt!" I managed to keep my groans silent as I turned to face Nadai Boris. His cheerful face hid the dark nature of his job. Don't call me Redbutt, I said sternly, knowing it would do no good. But your butt always stays red. Always, he replied. You should really get that problem looked at. Nadai's job was to transport rogue Dreth for judgment, and sometimes he had to capture them. He had been all the way to the farthest part of Redwood so that he was standing in the ocean that lined the west coast of this continent. Luckily, that meant he was gone the majority of the year. But he always returned like the plagues from the time of Fang. So you're finally back from your last adventure? I asked Nadai. Yeah, it was, well, the Council of Ants has agreed to let me take a 2-year break. He said, his voice seeming to break at one point. Holy hum! I said, and then looked around to make sure no one had heard me. Luckily, the parents were too concerned with controlling their children. Those parents were probably feeling somewhat jealous that I would only be dealing with teenagers while they had to deal with children much younger. What happened? I asked, feeling concerned for this asshole who every now and again I started to think of as a friend. I don't want to go on about it, he replied, avoiding my gaze. I don't even know what happened. I mean, the mission was simple. Chase down Sal Ray. So he tried to escape punishment? Yeah, Ray had committed bestiality and fled. I shivered. Some dread thought that the ability to turn into animals made bestiality a thing of the past. But that wasn't true. Just because we could turn into animals didn't give us the ability to truly become one. We would always be Drethagville, and they would always be animals. Looking at Nadai, I could see he wasn't telling me something. In that moment, I dearly wished I was good enough friends with him to ask what was wrong. In that rare moment, I truly cared for his well-being. He wasn't the sort of Dreth to take a year off his job, even when he was nearly dying. So, you and your butt buddy getting it on? Nadai asked, making that rare moment of carrying gone from my mind. I guess I could try to care by reminding myself of his defense mechanism. But it was too annoying to care for long. My husband and I are doing fine, I said, starting to walk down the black grass, my shoes making a pleasant sound against it that I tried to focus on. I also tried to focus on today's lessons plan and about doing a small mock scouting mission. It shouldn't cause any problems, but with Gaia being the harsh mistress it was, anything could happen. Even when you planned everything out to be safe. Does he comment on that fine butt of yours? Nadai said, starting to ruin any chance of me keeping calm. What color is his butt? Is it the same black color as my fine gorilla derriere? If you're also going to ask if Frank calls me red butt, the answer is no, I said. You know, you've hung around me too much when you start completing my jokes. I haven't had much choice. How is your friend? I said, trying to give him a reason to leave me be. I've only been back 2 days. He's been busy making repairs to Native Lakes' defenses, Nadai replied. Every village had some form of defense, besides warriors who tended to fight outside villages, and those tasked with keeping those defenses safe from both descendants and warring villages. The Council of Anne kept us secure, but couldn't always erase differences completely. Ash to die, Nadai said with a smile. Is he still going around with a rhinoceros horn? Every full moon, like always, I said while trying to understand how anyone could stand being around and die so long. Suddenly a group of little ones ran in front of us. By their faces, I could tell that they were vainly trying to veil. I laughed softly as I recalled that same look being on my face when I had been young and deciding what to veil into. Nadai and I got off the street that my house was on. Out of 3 other paths to go down, I decided to go left. This would lead me to the school, a building that the Retha had used for a clubhouse. and where I needed to be. A huge plus would be that Nadai wouldn't be going there. Does he talk about me? Nadai asked, a smile still on his face. Everyone talks about you, I replied with a shrug. I know that, but does he talk about me? I sighed, shaking my head. Nadai was egotistical, but could this be... No. No, it couldn't be. Does Jash talk about me like, Nadai said, and his usual brown skin now took on a blackish hue around his cheeks. Are you blushing? I asked, too shocked to say anything else. No? He replied, trying desperately to reverse his veil. Oh, listen, I have to go teach my class. Afterwards, I'll see if Ash would like to have dinner with you, I teased. Before he could reply, a man came running towards us. His body was completely blackened and the scent of burning was thick. I panicked for a moment, thinking that he was burning alive. Then reasoning set in, and I could tell that part of him had revealed, and the parts that were burning were his clothing. Hey, nice to talk to you, Redbutt, Nadai said, but I think I should help this piece of toast to Doctor. The piece of toast turned to see Nadai as the man went over to calm him down. I did admit that he had a good way with people from time to time, but his emotions were both too annoying and subject to change for me. I was thankfully allowed to get to the school without any more interruptions. The piece of toast had come from the direction of a shield generator that was used solely in hurricane emergencies. If any hurricane got to the point where it would demolish native lakes, the shield would be turned on. Entering the school, I was glad that the number of times the shield had been turned on was limited. You're going to Redwood next year? I heard one of my students shout in surprise. Hello, Buteo Ralph. All of them shouted once they saw me, then broke out into giggles. I spent a minute arranging things on my desk. The teenagers were the ones to wake up the earliest for classes, and some of them weren't morning people. One of my students was snoring away at his desk, and I could hear another in a different classroom doing the same. There were 3 teachers for the teenagers, 2 for those younger, and anyone older had to wait until a teacher of sufficient knowledge arrived to the village. The exception to the latter were those that went to seek further schooling elsewhere. Who's going to Redwood? I asked once I had settled down for the morning. Me, sir, a student around the age of 17 years old replied. Gaia Smith, I said with a sad smile. What's the occasion? Family, he said with a small blush. Mother got a job at a training facility, to prepare in case any Rethi come back to Gaia. I inwardly groaned. Many Dreth, including myself, like to pretend that the Rethi would never come back. It was a lie. Those greedy creatures wouldn't give up anything. Not forever. All of us were living off of borrowed time. I'll miss you, I told him with a sad smile. But your mother will be doing noble work, and I'm sure you'll be a noble swan. When do you think they'll come back? Another of my students asked. I'd love to be on the front lines against them. They wouldn't stand a chance. Do you know what war involves? I asked, and she went silent quickly. War isn't noble, and it isn't glorious. Is that why you aren't a warrior? Partially, but mainly due to me wanting to start a family in one place. The class was silent as I pulled out some notes. I looked over them and decided which would be most important to prepare them for the trip today. Where do we live? I asked. Native lakes in the state of Flowerland. They replied as one. What are the first lines of defense? The guards and traps. Where are you to go if Native Lakes is under threat? New Venice to speak to the snow leopards, but only as a last resort. Why as a last resort? The Council of Ant allows each village to take care of their own differences. A ruling by the Council is not to be given lightly. I nodded. I was glad this sort of pop quiz was answered without any wrong answers. If things were to go wrong, they could go to New Venice. At least if they weren't able to get back to Native Lakes for whatever reason. Today I have a treat for you, I said, crossing my arms as I moved to the front of the desk and sat down. We are to go a short distance away from Native Lakes. This will allow you to see more of your home and be prepared for the dangerous world we now live in. But before we go, I'm going to need you to answer an important series of questions. What wildlife are we not to kill, and why? Wolves, because they are emissaries of Fang who have veiled into a wolf, they said with a smile. Remember, in extreme circumstances you may kill a wolf. Slightly injuring a wolf is fine, as a wolf may need some persuasion not to attack you. After that, we quickly got prepared for our adventure for the day. Gaia and Doll seemed to take more interest than was usual, and I assumed that was because this was one of the last times we'd be seeing him. Most Reth didn't travel far from their home village. My students were all well behaved as we made final preparations. Gaia Doll, I said once everyone was ready. As you will be leaving us soon, you get to choose our path for the day. Really? Gaia Doll asked, a huge smile forming on his face. I mean, you don't usually take us out scouting, and you sure don't let any of us choose the path. Gaia is full of surprises, and I want to make sure you will do well when you leave Native Lakes. Walking out of school, I felt no tension in the air. All of them were carefree and making jokes. Even the more nervous students were taking some time to relax. Training courses were on either side of the black grass, and I watched the Dreth. Part of me wanted to be a warrior, to defend Native Lakes and the rest of Gaia, and that part was hard to control at times. But whenever I thought of Frank and starting a family, my itch to fight died down. I was a scout of Native Lakes. I did things just as important as any Dreth-Ivil warrior. Whew. And that's the end of chapter 1. Oh shit. Sorry, I thought I was about to spill and things going everywhere. So, sorry. I really should have drank before I started reading. Very lucky my voice didn't totally break. But yeah, that's the first chapter of my original web series, Chronicles of Gaia. So don't like reading over my past work, because when I was practicing, I was like, maybe I should have changed this. Why did I say that? I could have done this or that. And I'm using a PRC version of the first 4 chapters that I made, and you can find it on the the link listed below. I think I might even add a link to the PRC file, so you could download and like put it on your Kindle. But I put the first volume out so quickly that I had some spacing issues every now and again that I'll try to work out next time. I was just so like excited to get volume 1 out that I was like, let's just get it out there. So yeah, that's I loathe reading over my old work because yeah, I'm like I should change. Yeah. So yeah, this is the start of the whole journey. I wanted chapter 1 to be just bringing you into the world, just to become somewhat familiar, so nothing really too really exciting happens. You just get to meet some characters, you get to meet about the world, and Buteo being a teacher gives him an excuse to be able to give some information, to know a bunch of stuff. So that means I have a good character to sort of introduce you to everything. Yeah. Yeah, it was a nice, slow chapter. I actually prefer character building over big action sets. I like getting to know the character rather than, ooh, they did this. So, comment down below and tell me what you think of this chapter. And no spoilers for later in the series. So, spoiler-free, minor. The same thing as with Animorphs. Minor spoilers, okay. Major spoilers, no. And yeah, the link to the web series is down below. After I finish recording this live, I will put a link to go to the volume 1. So yeah. Yeah, please, this again is, even though I'm the author, this is still this is still an adaptation of the work. Sometimes still an adaptation. You might read it and think words or phrases should be, said somewhat differently. So, yeah. Plus, you can listen to me and read along. And there are perks if you donate to my Patreon. You can see new chapters earlier. You can also see bonus content. So. And please like this video and subscribe to the channel because I blog, because I really want to be noticed, because I have no friends, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I think that's all. And so now's the part where we drink a little. And if you can join in with me, drink your favorite alcohol or liqueur or whatever alcoholic beverage is lying around. And if you don't drink for whatever reason, you can also join in by drinking, like, I have hot chocolate in here, or like water or milk or whatever. And today we're going to drink to a friend passed away this year. Her name was Sky Raven, and I knew her from the website Subeda. She was a very good person, and she was also one of the earliest ones to get into the series and, give me comments or feedback or answer questions. Besides that, she was a great person, so let's drink to Sky Raven. And I'll be doing readings of up to chapter 4 of the main chapters of Chronicles of Gaia. And I'll continue on with this dramatic reading of Chronicles of Gaia whenever, another volume comes out, which is every 4 chapters of the main series. So there will be a reading next Friday and Sunday if everything goes correct and nothing goes to shit. So until next video, goodbye.